Nicholas and Isabella had been married for 10 years, a decade filled with love and mutual support, but also marked by their inability to have children. Despite trying every available medical option and countless prayers, their efforts had yielded no results. One morning, Nicholas woke up with an excruciating pain in his abdomen. Alarmed by the intensity of his condition, Isabella quickly rushed him to the hospital. After a series of tests, the doctor diagnosed him with a chronic stomach cancer. The prognosis was grim. Treatment would be lengthy and uncertain, with no guarantee of a full recovery. As Nicholas lay in the hospital bed, news of his illness spread among his family. His mother and siblings visited to show their support, but their concerns soon shifted to a different matter. "Nicholas, you are our only son," his mother began, her tone laced with urgency. "You must think about our lineage. We've been patient, but now it's time to consider taking a second wife. She could give you children to carry on the family name." Nicholas was conflicted. His love for Isabella was deep and unwavering, but the pressure from his family weighed heavily on him. After his discharge from the hospital, he decided to have an honest conversation with his wife about the matter. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Nicholas mustered the courage to bring up the topic. "Isabella," he began hesitantly, "you know how much I love you. But my family is pressuring me to marry a second wife, for the sake of having children." To his surprise, Isabella remained calm. She reached for his hand and held it tightly. "Nicholas," she said softly, "I understand. I want you to be happy, and I know how important having a family is to you. If this is what you believe will complete us, I will support you." Her selflessness left Nicholas both grateful and heartbroken. He knew the depth of her sacrifice and promised himself that he would handle the situation with the utmost care and respect. A week after his discharge from the hospital, Nicholas resumed work, though his heart was heavy with conflicting emotions. Seated at his desk, he stared blankly at a document in front of him, lost in thought. The weight of his diagnosis and the pressure to marry a second wife consumed his mind. Camila, his longtime friend and colleague, entered his office without knocking, a habit she had developed over the years of their close friendship. She was a stunning woman in her early 40s, confident and full of life. Her radiant smile lit up the room as she greeted him. "Hey, Nicholas. How are you?" she teased. Nicholas, still deep in thought, didn't respond. Realizing he hadn't even noticed her presence, Camila walked closer and gently touched his shoulder. "Nicholas, what's going on? You've been staring into space since I came in." Startled, Nicholas blinked and sat upright. "Oh, Camila, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were here." Camila narrowed her eyes playfully, but with a hint of concern. "Nick, I won't let you off the hook that easily. You're not yourself today, and I'm all ears. Tell me, what's wrong?" Nicholas sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "Camila, you've always been a good friend. Thank you for always checking in on me. Honestly, I've been overwhelmed lately. First, the doctors diagnosed me with cancer, something I'm still trying to come to terms with. And now, my parents are pushing me to marry a second wife. They're desperate for me to have children, especially a male child to continue the family name. It's a lot to process." Camila listened intently, her brow furrowing in thought. When he finished, she nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. Then, with a half-smile, she said, "Well, Nick, maybe it's time you consider my offer. You know how long I've wanted to become a mother. I could be your second wife and help you fulfill your family's wishes." Nicholas chuckled nervously, waving his hand dismissively. "Come on, Camilla, stop joking around. How could I possibly marry someone like you? You're a powerful, successful woman. I need someone simple, a young girl who will respect Isabella, not someone like you, a strong and independent woman." The smile vanished from Camilla's face, replaced by an expression of hurt and disbelief. She crossed her arms and leaned against the desk, her tone serious. "Nick, how can you say that? After all these years of friendship, you'd rather marry a stranger than consider me. I've stood by you through thick and thin. I'm here, ready and willing, yet you'd overlook me because of some ridiculous notion about what kind of woman you need." Nicholas hesitated, seeing the pain in her eyes. "Camilla, it's not that simple." "No, Nick," she interrupted, her voice firm but trembling with emotion. "It is simple, but you're making it complicated. Don't push away someone who genuinely cares about you for the sake of appearances. Think about it." With that, she turned and walked out of his office, leaving Nicholas alone once more, grappling with even more confusion than before. 3 months later, Nicholas and Camilla tied the knot in a quiet ceremony, bringing a new dynamic to his household. Despite the unusual circumstances, the arrangement turned out better than anyone had anticipated. Camilla seamlessly embraced her role as the second wife, managing to strike a delicate balance that ensured peace and harmony within the family. Camilla, being a career-driven woman, continued her demanding job, but always found ways to make Isabella, the first wife, feel valued and respected. Whenever she returned home from work, she would stop by a store to pick up thoughtful gifts for Isabella, sometimes a beautiful scarf, other times her favorite snacks or a new recipe book. It became a routine that Isabella quietly appreciated, as it showed Camilla's effort to build a bond. Isabella, a full house wife, took pride in maintaining the household. She ensured the house was spotless and meals were ready on time. Although she had initially harbored doubts about sharing her husband, Camilla's kindness and respect began to melt her reservations. Camilla often expressed her gratitude for Isabella's hard work, praising her cooking and admiring her dedication to the home. The two women developed an understanding. Camilla acknowledged Isabella's status as the first wife and treated her with the utmost respect, avoiding any behaviors that could cause friction. In return, Isabella appreciated Camilla's efforts to maintain harmony and even found herself enjoying the companionship. Nicholas, for his part, worked hard to ensure both wives felt equally loved and cared for. He cherished Isabella's unwavering support over the years and admired Camilla's ability to integrate into the family with such grace. Often, he would remind both women how much they meant to him, fostering a sense of unity in the household. Camilla's pregnancy was a joyous time for the entire household. Nicholas showered her with love and attention, ensuring her every need was met, while Isabella went above and beyond to make her co-wife comfortable. Most days, Isabella insisted that Camilla rest and avoid any strenuous activities, constantly reminding her, "You don't need to lift a finger. Just focus on keeping yourself and the baby healthy." The bond between the two women deepened during this period, turning their relationship into one that resembled sisterhood rather than rivalry. Their shared laughter and camaraderie filled the home with warmth and positivity. When the long-awaited day arrived, the house erupted in celebration as Camilla gave birth to a bouncing baby boy, whom they named Dixon. Nicholas was overjoyed, and Isabella was so thrilled that she immediately stepped into the role of a doting nanny. Despite Nicholas offering to hire professional help, Isabella adamantly refused, saying, "This is my joy too. I'll take care of him myself." She became deeply involved in Dixon's upbringing, treating him as though he were her own son. Camilla, grateful for Isabella's unwavering support, often said, "I don't know what I would do without you. You've become more than a co-wife. You're my sister." 2 years later, the family celebrated another joyous occasion. Camilla gave birth to a baby girl, whom they named Grace. Nicholas's happiness knew no bounds. He often expressed how blessed he felt, saying, "I'm not just a husband anymore. I'm a father of children. This is more than I could have ever hoped for." Isabella's devotion to Camilla and her children remained unwavering. She took on the role of a second mother to Grace, ensuring that both children received all the love and care they needed. Her selflessness and genuine affection for the family earned her a special place in everyone's heart. One evening, 7 years after Grace's birth, the family gathered in the living room to discuss Dixon's education. "It's time to decide on the right secondary school for him," Nicholas said, looking at his wives with pride, as he listened to their suggestions. Isabella, with her usual warm smile, spoke first. "Being the first son, I think we should keep him close to home and enroll him in a good day school. That way, we can monitor him closely, guide his character, and ensure he grows up to become a proper man." Before Nicholas could respond, Camilla abruptly cut in. "What exactly do you mean by that?" she said, her tone sharp and uncharacteristically dismissive. "Do you think this is a conversation about tomatoes and pepper? We're discussing the future of my son, not house chores. Your so-called nanny wisdom is not needed here. Let the educated ones handle this." The room fell silent as Isabella and Nicholas stared at her in stunned disbelief. Isabella's smile disappeared, replaced by a look of shock and hurt, while Nicholas sat up straighter, his brows furrowed in confusion. "Camilla," he said cautiously, "is there a problem? Why are you speaking this way?" Isabella, still trying to process the sudden change in tone, shook her head slowly but remained silent. Camilla, seemingly unbothered, doubled down. "You people don't seem to understand common sense. My son's education isn't something to be managed with the same wisdom used for changing diapers or washing clothes. This is a serious matter, and it requires proper input." The tension in the room became palpable. Isabella's eyes flashed with anger as she finally found her voice. "Am I the one you're talking to like that, Camilla?" she asked, her voice trembling with restrained emotion. Nicholas quickly intervened, raising a hand to calm the brewing storm. "Enough," he said firmly, his voice carrying authority. "This is not how we talk to each other in this house. Camilla, what is going on? Why the sudden disrespect? Isabella has been nothing but supportive to you and the children." Camilla crossed her arms, avoiding their eyes, but the tension in her posture betrayed her unease. "I want everyone to understand my position here." Isabella, still hurt, rose to her feet. "I have always treated Dixon as my own child and done everything to make you comfortable in this house. If this is how you see me, then perhaps I need to rethink my place here." The room grew heavy with silence. Nicholas looked from one wife to the other, torn between addressing the disrespect and maintaining the fragile harmony of the home. That evening, for the first time, Camilla retreated to the kitchen and prepared dinner for herself and her children without involving Isabella. It was a deliberate statement, and her behavior took a drastic turn. She stopped the children from playing or even speaking with Isabella, and she began calling Isabella demeaning names, hurling insults at every opportunity. Isabella, who had cared for these children as if they were her own, was devastated. Watching Dixon and Grace, whom she had raised from infancy, suddenly distance themselves from her at their mother's command felt like her world was crumbling. The once harmonious household now felt hostile, and Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that the foundation of their family was cracking. Nicholas, unable to bear the growing rift between his wives, decided to intervene. That evening, he called both women into the living room. His tone was calm but firm as he addressed them. "This cannot continue," he said. "We've worked hard to build a peaceful home, and I won't allow it to fall apart. Camilla, Isabella, let's resolve this misunderstanding like adults." But Camilla's anger boiled over, derailing the conversation. "Enough of this pretense, Nicholas," she snapped. "It's time for everyone in this house to know their position. I'm the only legal wife here, not just a wife, but a proud mother of 2 children. Isabella has no place here beyond that of a glorified housemaid." Nicholas's jaw tightened as he listened, but before he could respond, Camilla turned to Isabella, her words cutting like a knife. "If you want to enjoy living in this house, you must accept your role as the help. I've respected your barren life long enough, but I've had enough of pretending. You are not my equal in any way, not in wealth, not in education, and certainly not in fruitfulness." Isabella sat frozen, her heart breaking with every word. Tears welled in her eyes and rolled silently down her cheeks. Without saying a word, she rose and walked to her room, her dignity in tatters. Nicholas was left stunned, staring at Camilla in disbelief. "Camilla, do you even hear yourself?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and disappointment. "This is not the woman I married, nor the family we envisioned." But Camilla simply crossed her arms, her face set in. Isabella found herself reduced to a shadow of the woman she once was in her own home. Over time, she resigned herself to the role Camilla had imposed on her, a housemaid. The days of respect and harmony were long gone, replaced by constant humiliation. Camilla's demands grew increasingly demeaning. She would often instruct Isabella to wash piles of clothes by hand, forbidding her from using the washing machine. "You don't deserve the convenience of modern appliances," she would say with a sneer. Whenever Nicholas was away, Camilla's cruelty intensified. Isabella was forbidden from eating at the dining table with the family. Instead, she was relegated to the kitchen, or made to wait until everyone else was finished before she could eat. Even Dixon and Grace, who had once adored Isabella, began mimicking their mother's behavior. One evening after dinner, Grace called out in a sharp, condescending tone, "Isabella, are you too dumb to notice I'm done eating? Why are the plates still here?" Isabella, startled, rushed to the dining table. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Grace. I didn't notice," she said softly, her hands trembling as she picked up the plates. Camilla burst into laughter, her voice dripping with scorn. "Better serve them well, Isabella. You don't want to be thrown out of this house forever." Grace joined in the laughter, adding, "Electric wife." Tears streamed down Isabella's face as she nodded silently, unable to muster a response. The pain of being treated this way by the children she had raised and loved as her own was unbearable. Each insult felt like another crack in her already broken heart. Yet, through it all, Isabella clung to a shred of hope, praying silently that things would change for the better. One fateful day, the school holidays, Nicholas realized he had forgotten an important document at home. It was midday, and he decided to drive back to retrieve it. As he entered the house, the sound of loud music greeted him. He walked into the living room to find a shocking scene. Grace and Dixon were dancing joyfully, while Isabella knelt on the floor, holding a tray with 2 bottles of wine and glasses. Her face was pale with exhaustion, and her hands trembled slightly as she balanced the tray. She remained on her knees, waiting patiently as the children ignored her and continued their fun. Nicholas froze in disbelief, his eyes darting between his children and Isabella. He had been aware of Camilla's mistreatment of Isabella, but seeing the children joining in was a bitter blow. "What is going on here?" Nicholas demanded, his voice sharp and full of anger. Grace, without a hint of remorse, responded, "Mom said we could instruct Isabella to do whatever we feel like so we can enjoy our holiday." Nicholas's fury erupted. He strode toward his children and, unable to contain his rage, slapped Dixon and Grace across their faces. The music stopped abruptly as the room descended into a stunned silence. "What insult!" Nicholas roared. "The same woman who nursed you from infancy, who loved and cared for you as her own, is the one you've reduced to this. What kind of children are you becoming?" Dixon's face turned red with anger, his eyes blazing. "You'll regret hitting me because of this electric wife of yours," he spat, before storming off to his room. Grace, undeterred by her father's fury, glared at Isabella and said coldly, "Her days in this house are numbered. Mark my words." She followed her brother, leaving Nicholas and Isabella alone in the living room. Nicholas turned to Isabella, his heart heavy with guilt. He gently took the tray from her hands, helped her to her feet, and looked into her tear-filled eyes. "Isabella, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I failed you as a husband. Please, forgive me." Isabella gave him a sad, weary smile. "Nicholas, you asked me to stay home as a full-time housewife while you worked hard to give us a better life. See what that decision has cost me now." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she continued, "I loved those children like they were my own. I've sacrificed so much for this family, yet I've been reduced to nothing in my own home." Nicholas's heart ached as he wiped her tears away. "This ends today, Isabella. I promise you, things will change. No one will ever treat you this way again." But Isabella's pain ran deep, and though she appreciated his words, she couldn't shake the feeling that the damage might already be beyond repair. The house that once felt like home had turned into a place of torment, and she wondered if her dignity could ever truly be restored. When Camilla returned from work that evening, she was surprised to find the house unusually quiet. The cheerful chaos that usually greeted her was absent, and Isabella wasn't on the veranda to welcome her as she always did. Camilla dropped her bag on the nearest chair and called out loudly, "Where is everyone?" But there was no response. Growing impatient, she raised her voice, "Dixon, Grace, I'm home." Moment later, Dixon emerged from his room, his face sullen and his steps slow. Camilla noticed his downcast expression immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. Before he could respond, Grace appeared from the hallway, her expression equally glum. "Dad slapped us today because of that illiterate wife of his," she said bitterly. "And then he left the house with her." Dixon, clearly still fuming, cut in. "I've never been humiliated like that in my life. My face was burning 4 hours. I couldn't even see properly for a while." Camilla's jaw tightened as anger bubbled inside her. "So, Nicholas slapped my children because of Isabella?" she asked, her voice sharp with indignation. "Not just that," Grace added. "He took her out somewhere to cool off. And now there's no one in the house to cook for us." Camilla's face darkened. "So he thinks it's fine to insult my children and then treat that woman like royalty. And you said he left with her?" Grace nodded. "He even said a lot of terrible things to us before he left." Camilla's lips curled into a cold smile. "None of you should react to anything they've done or said. Leave this to me. I'll handle it," she said, her tone laced with determination. The children exchanged glances and then nodded, fully aware of their mother's capability to take control of any situation. They knew she wouldn't rest until she had turned the tide in their favor, and they waited eagerly to see what she had planned. Camilla, meanwhile, sat down, her mind racing with thoughts of revenge and strategy. She would not allow Isabella to gain the upper hand in her home, not while she was still in control. "Watch and learn," she muttered under her breath, her eyes glinting with resolve. A few days later, Nicholas had to leave on a business trip. Before departing, he took Camilla aside and spoke with her earnestly. "Camilla, please ensure there's peace in the house while I'm away. I don't want to come back to any issues." Camilla gave him a sweet smile and reassured him. "Don't worry, Nicholas. Everything will be fine." For the first day of his absence, Camilla and her children were surprisingly cordial to Isabella. They refrained from making demands or sending her on errands, creating an eerie calm in the house. Isabella, though wary, dared to hope that things might be improving. But that night, the true nature of their intentions revealed itself. After dinner, Isabella was clearing the table when Camilla and her children suddenly burst into laughter. Startled, Isabella turned to them, confused. Dixon, wearing a smug expression, looked her straight in the eye. "As the firstborn and only son of this house, my word is final. Either you obey me, or you leave this house tonight for good." Isabella's mouth fell open in shock. "What are you saying, Dixon? This is my home too," she said, her voice trembling. But Grace interrupted her, holding a rolled-up mat. "Here, take this," she said mockingly. "You'll need it for the veranda. Have a good." Camilla stood back, arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on her face. She didn't say a word, letting her children take the lead in this cruel act. Isabella's heart sank as she looked at the mat in Grace's hands. Her eyes filled with tears, but she refused to cry in front of them. Taking a deep breath, she quietly said, "You can humiliate me all you want, but one day you will all regret your actions." She took the mat and walked toward the veranda, her steps heavy with sorrow. That night, under the open sky, with nothing but the cold breeze and her thoughts, Isabella lay awake, wondering how much longer she could endure the pain and humiliation in what was supposed to be her own home. 6 days later, As Nicholas was returning from his business trip, tragedy struck. He was involved in a car accident and was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. At home, Isabella was outside washing clothes when her phone buzzed. She wiped her wet hands on her wrapper and answered the call. The voice on the other end sounded urgent. "Mrs. Nicholas, your husband has been rushed to the hospital. He was involved in a motor accident." Once she got the details, she left everything as it was and hurried to the hospital. By the time she arrived, Nicholas was already in the emergency room, undergoing treatment. He was unconscious, but the doctors were doing everything they could to stabilize him. Isabella, unable to hold back her tears, sat in the waiting room, silently praying for his recovery. The following day, Camila and her children arrived at the hospital. Camila walked in briskly, her face calm and collected. "How is he?" she asked, barely glancing at Isabella. "The doctors say he's stable, but still unconscious," Isabella replied quietly. Camila nodded, then said casually, "I can't stay long. I have an important official meeting to attend. Let me know if anything changes." Without waiting for a response, she turned and left, her children trailing behind. A week later, Nicholas regained consciousness, much to Isabella's relief. She had been by his side every day, taking care of him and ensuring he had everything he needed. Nicholas smiled weakly at her. "Thank you, Isabella," he whispered. That afternoon, Dr. Alex, the surgeon who had treated Nicholas, called him into his office. "Mr. Nicholas," he began, "you've made an excellent recovery. But there's something important I need to discuss with you." Nicholas frowned, his curiosity piqued. "What is it, doctor?" Dr. Alex nodded. "Yes, Mr. Nicholas, the condition was long-standing, but it's been corrected now." Nicholas swallowed hard, his thoughts turning to his children. "Doctor," he began hesitantly, "does this mean—" Dr. Alex interrupted gently. "I'd like to confirm something. Do you have children?" "Yes," Nicholas replied quickly, his voice firm. "I have two beautiful children, a son and a daughter." Dr. Alex smiled politely. "Good. Could you invite them over tomorrow? I'd like to run a DNA test to rule out any hereditary conditions." Nicholas nodded, his mind in turmoil. That night, as he lay in the hospital bed, doubts and questions plagued his thoughts. If I was impotent all these years, does that mean? He couldn't bring himself to finish the thought. The next day, Dixon and Grace came to the hospital with Camila, unaware of the test they were about to undergo. After their blood samples were taken for the DNA test, Nicholas waited anxiously for the results. When Dr. Alex finally called him back into his office, he delivered the news with a calm demeanor. "Mr. Nicholas, the results are conclusive. You are not the biological father of these children." Nicholas felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. His chest tightened as the weight of the revelation hit him. "So, I've been raising another man's children all this time," he thought, his heart breaking. Nicholas decided to keep the shocking truth about Dixon and Grace's paternity a secret from everyone, including Isabella. He told himself that the right time to address it would come, but for now, peace in the family was his priority. A few months later, a miracle happened. Isabella became pregnant. The news sent shockwaves through the household. Nicholas was overjoyed. But Camila and her children were stunned. They couldn't believe it. "How is this possible?" Camila fumed in private. How did she get pregnant after all these years? Camilla's disbelief quickly turned into resentment. She and her children decided to do everything in their power to frustrate Isabella and make her life miserable. They intensified their bullying, spilling water where Isabella walked, hiding essential items, and hurling insults at her daily. But despite their cruel tactics, Isabella remained strong. She drew strength from Nicholas' unwavering support and her faith in God. Each time Camilla and her children tried to harm her, their efforts failed. At the end of her pregnancy, Isabella gave birth to a set of twins, a boy and a girl. The house was filled with mixed emotions. Nicholas was overjoyed and emotional, seeing his dreams of fatherhood fulfilled in such a magnificent way. Camilla, on the other hand, was livid. She couldn't hide her jealousy and bitterness. She paced her room, muttering to herself, "How did she get pregnant? Who could be the father of these children? I must get to the root of this." Camilla and her children began a new campaign of torment. They constantly picked fights with Isabella, pointing out features on the twins' bodies that they claimed didn't match Nicholas. "Look at their noses," Dixon sneered. "They don't look anything like Dad's." Grace chimed in, "Their skin tone is too light. Are we sure they're not someone else's children?" Isabella, though hurt, always defended herself and her children. "These are my husband's children, and no amount of lies or bullying will change that," she would say firmly. The bullying escalated as the twins approached their first birthday. Camilla's relentless accusations and her children's cruel remarks became unbearable for Isabella. One evening, after a particularly nasty confrontation, Isabella turned to Nicholas, her voice trembling. Nicholas looked at her, a gentle smile on his face. "We'll do the DNA test, Isabella," he said, "but we'll do it in a way that leaves no room for doubt. I'll call for a family meeting. Your family, my family, and Camilla's family will all be present. We'll settle this matter once and for all." Camilla, overhearing this, couldn't contain her glee. She clapped her hands together, grinning. Finally, the truth will come out. Isabella and her illegitimate children will be thrown out of this house for good. The family gathering was initially light-hearted, with laughter and jokes filling the air. Camilla and her children were particularly boisterous, cracking jokes that left Isabella visibly uncomfortable. Despite their mockery, Isabella remained calm, her poise reflecting her strength. Everyone in attendance was curious about the reason for the unusual gathering, especially since it was organized under the guise of celebrating the twins' first birthday. As the room quieted, Nicholas stood, commanding the attention of everyone present. "Thank you all for coming," Nicholas began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know you're wondering why only family members were invited today. There's something important I need to share, something I've been keeping to myself for nearly 2 years." The room was tense, every eye fixed on him. Nicholas continued, "Years ago, when I was diagnosed with cancer, my family, my mother and siblings, advised me to take a second wife. They believed it was the only way to secure our lineage since Isabella, and I couldn't have children. Isabella, with her characteristic selflessness, supported the idea." He paused, glancing at Isabella, who nodded encouragingly. "Camilla entered our lives and brought so much joy," Nicholas said, his tone softening. "She made us parents, and for that, I will always be grateful. But today, I must unveil a truth I've hidden for far too long." The room fell into a deafening silence as Nicholas pulled out a document. "This," he said, holding it up, "is the result of a DNA test. It proves that I am not the biological father of Dixon and Grace." Gasps erupted around the room. Isabella's face paled as she stood abruptly. "No, no, Nicholas," she pleaded. "You can't disown them now just because I've had children. They are your children, your blood." Nicholas shook his head, his eyes filled with sorrow. "Isabella, my love, I wish it were that simple. But the truth is, I discovered after my accident that I was infertile all those years. We tried for a child. It wasn't you who couldn't conceive, it was me. It was during my treatment that I was finally able to father a child. Our twins are proof of that." Camilla's children turned to her, their faces a mix of shock and betrayal. "Mom," Dixon asked, his voice trembling, "is this true?" Camilla, tears streaming down her face, nodded slowly. "Yes," she confessed, "it's true. 3 months into my marriage, when I realized I wasn't pregnant, I panicked. I knew I had to secure my place in this family, so I made a terrible decision. I got involved with another man and became pregnant with both of you." The room exploded in murmurs. Camilla's parents looked horrified, while Dixon and Grace recoiled in disbelief. "Who is the father?" Nicholas demanded, his voice rising. Camilla buried her face in her hands, her sobs echoing through the room. "It was the gate man," she admitted. The gate man, Isabella, Camilla's parents, and the children chorused in unison, their voices a mix of shock and disgust. Nicholas, his anger boiling over, shook his head. "You betrayed the friendship that brought us together, Camilla. You lied to me, to our family, and most importantly, to these children. For that, you and your children must leave this house immediately." Camilla, still weeping, looked up. "Not just like that, Nicholas. I've been part of your life 4 years. I've contributed to your success. You now own a group of companies, houses, and so much more. All of this was built during our marriage. I deserve something for myself and my children. I can't leave empty-handed." Nicholas smirked, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "You misunderstand, Camilla. Everything I own belongs to Isabella. Every document for every property and business clearly states they are gifts to my wife. She owns everything." Camilla's sobs grew louder as the weight of his words sank in. "Are you saying you won't even give me one house for myself and the children?" Nicholas' expression hardened. "You made your choices, Camilla. You betrayed this family. You and your children have no place here. I've already made arrangements for your departure." At that moment, Nicholas called for the gate man. The man entered, looking confused. Nicholas turned to him and said, "You and your wife, Camilla, along with your children, must leave this house immediately. I will not tolerate deception or betrayal any longer." The gate man, stunned, nodded in agreement, while Camilla collapsed into tears, realizing she had lost everything. Isabella, holding her twins close, watched the scene unfold silently. For the first time in years, justice had been served. Nicholas turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude and remorse. "Isabella," he said, "you are the heart of this family. Thank you for your patience, your strength, and your love. From this day forward, I will make sure you and our children have the peace and happiness you deserve." The room fell silent, the weight of truth settling over everyone as Camilla and her children were escorted out. It was the beginning of a new chapter for Nicholas and Isabella, a chapter built on truth, love, and unshakable trust.
Hello, besties. What are your takeaways from this story? Please share them with us in the comments section. We'd love to hear your thoughts. There are even more interesting stories waiting for you on this channel. Check the description below for the links to those videos. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and become part of our amazing community.
Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all. I love you.